So much so that going into my teenage years, doing a lot of very dangerous drugs and a lot of alcohol. By the time I was 12, here I am going into jail and going into rehab. So I went to my first rehab in 1982 at 12 years old. Hey, my name's Dave. I was born in Long Beach, California in 1969. So I was a child during the 70s and the 80s, teenager during the 80s. I was born to two parents, and I was born in an upper middle class family. I come from a long line of, actually, my grandfather and my great-grandfather and my father were all Harvard graduates. And so I always lived in a lifestyle of, as a child, they ran labor unions. And so we would do things like have parties at our house for the mayor of Los Angeles. So I was always around all these adults, all these, a lot of drinking parties, a lot of 3-drink lunches, and corruption. I really saw a lot of things as a child that, being that sponge, just magnetically came into me. I was taught and learned at an early age. I learned at an early age, which I was basically taught, that you don't drink just to drink, you drink to get drunk. And so unfortunately, by the time I was 7, my father, we had owned our own, he had left the unions. And they told him not to leave the unions, that he knew way too much about what was going on and all the corruption. And he left because of the corruption, and he started his own business, flying freight back and forth from from Long Beach Island to Catalina. Up until this point, nobody had done this. It was an innovative idea. It was completely new and fresh, and we were really successful. We had three Beechcraft planes, and in the summer of August of 1977, which was shortly after the Star Wars movie came out. That was the last movie I saw with my father at the drive-in theater. So that's always stuck with me really, really strongly. And what's odd about that, I'm sorry, I'm backing up a little bit, is that Carrie Fisher happens to be my second cousin. And I can see the alcoholism when I watch her story, when I see Postcards from the Edge. And I realize that, Deborah Reynolds, who's my great aunt, so my great grandmother's sister, and my great grandmother, who sat at the kitchen table all the time, drunk, drinking constantly all day long. And the progression that I can see of the alcoholism in my family was just, it's just funny to see now. Anyway, in the summer of August 77, my father was killed in a plane accident. There was carbon monoxide poisoning in the heater system of the plane, and they were flying back and forth between Catalina and Long Beach all day long. And they were the only people who had permission to fly out at night. There's no lighting in Catalina on the top of that mountain. There's no lights for that. You have to know what the hell you're doing to land there. So anyway, it was the middle of the night, and the co-pilot passed out first. And my father was flying, and he turned the plane back and came back towards, and he passed out just before approach and hit the cliff. And so that started that chapter of my life, right? Like learning at 7 years old, being there when they said we found them, they're both dead. One was wrapped around a rock, one was wrapped around a tree. Seeing my mother's eyes. My brother and sister weren't there. We tried to make it home in time before they saw it on the news, but it was too late by the time we got home. And just dealing with that loss, And my mom got together with our neighbor who lived like 2 doors down pretty quickly. He had just gotten a divorce. And so my sister was the babysitter of the kids. And, so we'd known this guy our whole lives. And then she got together with him. And then he died October 7th, 1979, which is the day before my birthday. I was born on October 3rd. And so boom, once again, more death, more tragedy, more numbness. I'm going to back up a little bit. At 7 years old, at my dad's wake was the first time I drank and got drunk and smoked cigarettes. Everybody was, of course, giving me what was left of their beer, like that much left in the can or whatever, and I'm down in all these beers and, giving me shots of booze. Oh, like that. That was how it was the 70s, man. It was all construction workers and laborers and politicians, and this is how these people dealt with their lives, So what was wrong with that, right? But right off the bat, I already knew I had to hide that from my mom. That wasn't, my mom never drank. So my mom was a staunch Catholic, and so we had that upbringing. I had a good childhood dynamic, really. In all honesty, looking back on it, there wasn't too much physical abuse. Sometimes my dad was really drunk. I got thrown across the room a couple times, and but it's what I created out of that. Like wasn't really anybody's fault but mine. It was just life circumstances. I see that and understand that now. And today, I'm 55 years old. I completely am able to walk through a lot of things in my life, man. I've run multi-million-dollar businesses. I've owned several businesses, and been very successful because I'm always that person when everybody else is running around like a chicken with their head cut off. I walk right through the center of it. Things like that don't stress me out. It's just money. It's just people. It's just business. I don't get it. Why is everybody so panicked like they're going to lose everything, right? Like, it's not the end of the world. But dealing with death, I've learned to be very detached from it. So much so that going into my teenage years, doing a lot of very dangerous drugs and a lot of alcohol, by the time I was 12, here I am going into jail and going into rehab. So I went to my first rehab in 1982 at 12 years old. Already, like, having done cocaine, methamphetamines, marijuana was the gateway to all that. Because my whole thing is once I'm already doing something, what's it matter if I'm doing anything else? It wasn't, there was no range to me of like, this is more extreme than this. It was all the same extreme as how I was presented to it with my upbringing, like that's just, it's all bad. So maybe that wasn't the right idea there, but so things went, kind of bad fairly quick with all that. Like I said, I grew up in really nice houses, and from there, I moved into, from upper middle class to actually living in upper class mansions, and falling from there to, couch surfing, to living in a cardboard box on the streets by the time I was 17. Because I didn't let the demoralization of the drugs and alcohol that I was doing not play a part in my life. I would have a couple years of sobriety and then I would fall off. Another year of sobriety and fall off. But I kept struggling to try to get back to sobriety because it was introduced to me at a young enough age that I knew what I needed to be doing to get away from that, I made a lot of bad decisions that are a lot of good stories in some ways, but at the same time, they always wound me up in jail. The bad part is I always wound up in jail when it was other people that I was involved with. I never wound up in jail when it was me who was committing crimes. So that just exacerbated that, like, with a sense of ego for the wrong things. I didn't know what I can get away with, and that's just not freaking good, man, for anybody. But the great thing about that today is I can take that dark black past and make it a bright light in somebody else's life. I can help them to redirect their lives in such a way that they don't have to make those mistakes. But at the same time, I can step back and let them hit those walls too. Because you have to. People have to find their walls. You can't just take them all away. It takes away the human experience and the human existence. I want to. I really do. There's some people I just want to hold on to until they get it. And, it hurts me. And I've watched a lot of people die. I've seen decapitations. I've watched a lot of crazy stuff. People driving cars thinking they're freaking Superman in a convertible. Like, yeah, you're Superman, all right. Your head's going one way, it's flying through the air now. I can kind of laugh about that now, and I'm only thinking of it in a comical sense of maybe a movie that I've seen, like, Police Story or something crazy like that. But it's real stuff, and it's real tragedy, and it's senseless because of the drugs and the alcohol that were involved. I've seen a lot of abuse in a lot of people's lives. I've understood that I can't stop that. Like, you can take the woman out of being the house that's being beaten, you can take her away from that relationship, and all that does is her to have resentments against you, and they're always going to go back until it's time, until they, unfortunately, sometimes they wind up dead. By the time I made it to prison, I was 20 years old. Yeah, 20 years old. 21. I had been sober for a couple years. I was out in Hawaii. I've been there for about 5 years. The last year that I was there, I started smoking ice again. Started doing meth. And moved from there to San Francisco. And started doing more drugs, more alcohol, then started robbing houses because lost everything again, and trying to make money to make ends meet, right? Ends that I didn't even have. I was living out of a truck, living out of a car at this point, and driving back and forth between San Francisco and Long Beach, where I grew up, a place called Cerritos, actually. And got caught up with some other people robbing houses, and that back of that truck had a shell on it. It was completely filled with, I don't even know how many felonies. So I wound up in Soledad State Prison for 26 months. Best thing that ever happened to me. I made some very solid decisions when I walked in there. I wasn't going to cuss. I wasn't going to smoke. And I wasn't going to do drugs. And I followed through on all that. So the not cussing thing, you yourself know the F word, fuck, can be taken in the wrong way, no matter what. Because some people just have so much hate inside of them that they want to twist anything you say just so they can fight. and sometimes they don't even need that. They're just rage ready to release, and that was my diffusing for that. That's how I diffused that situation. But it did something to me, and it made me learn how to think before I spoke. 100% think about what you're saying before you say it. And another part of my story, that there's so much in my teenage years. Another person that my mom was together with, I wound up being part of a motorcycle club, a very famous motorcycle club. We don't need to mention who they were, and ran drugs for them, and did a lot of crazy stuff, and saw, once again, a lot of crazy things. And didn't wind up in prison through that. But because of those connections, I was okay when I was in prison. Not that I needed the protection, not that I took any sides. It was just clear that I knew what needed to happen if there was riots. But rather than that, I didn't take any sides. I've never wanted to be that person. I've never needed to be in a gang. I've never needed to feel a sense of family. Would have been just isolated. I let the drugs and the alcohol do what they do best. Isolate me. And so what led me to prison was robbing houses. Now that, like I said, that 26 months was great because I walked out of Soledad State Prison having not done any drugs or alcohol, even though it was all right there. Like, I was very lucky. I was in AA meetings when I was in prison. I got to hang out with lifers. I got to hang out with people. I got to hang out in their freaking cells. And anybody who's watching this who knows this dynamic knows that this does not happen. I've got 2 years. That's a blink in their eye. And like they told me, it really breaks their heart to see people like that because it makes them realize that day in and day out that they are not getting out ever. But they graced me that. You know, I was the cool guy, I guess. But I was sober. I had sobriety that I had already brought in from the outside. I knew some things, you know. I was able to share that. I was able to go to church with these guys. And so I got to see a side of life that these guys beat into me that like, no, you don't want this, man. You don't want this. And then I met other people who were like, oh, I'm here on the fucking installment plan. I'm ready to just keep going around this revolving door. It's cool. This is my you know, I'm making my rite of passage right now. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? This is not what prison's literally designed for what I used it for recidivism. You can do it. If you are watching this right now and you have been to prison and you keep going through this same freaking dark door, you don't have to do it, man. These freaking parole officers and probation officers are not the enemies you think they are, man. If you reach out to them and you let them fucking know, like, I don't want to live this way anymore, they will help you. They will get you the freaking resources. There are resources for people who've gotten out of prison and jails that normal people can't get. Like, I mean, absolutely cannot get. You have to have gone to jail or prison to get these things. And they are great resources. There's resources out there to start your own freaking businesses, man. Like, you don't have to be the failure that you keep wanting to feel that you are. Man. So, even regardless of that, after walking out, after 26 months, I was sober. They put me back into the town of Cerritos and told me I couldn't leave the city confines, right? So here I am being honest and putting on there, just got out of prison, blah, 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 on job applications, and nobody would hire me. Nothing, you know? So I went into a travel agency with a fictitious name. I used the name Dave Mustaine, actually. And I hopped on a Greyhound bus and I disappeared. And I disappeared for 20 years. I evaded the system for 20 years. And when I turned myself in, because I didn't get caught, right? You know why I didn't get caught? Because I didn't commit no more freaking crimes. I didn't do anything that I went and got 3 freaking jobs. Because the amount of money I was used to making selling drugs or committing crimes was instantaneous, right? And the only thing I knew to do to make enough money to start to survive and not have to live on the streets was work. What more do I have to do? I'm either going to be living on the streets, walking around doing nothing and not getting sleep anyway, right? Because it's hard to get sleep. Or I can get 4 hours of sleep a day and be making my way towards something. And I did. I did that. So I ran away, which was wrong, but I did it for what I felt was the right reasons. And I still stand by that today. So when I came back into the system, they're like, how in the heck did you, like, I would deal with the FBI. I would do background checks for the FBI because I was in positions of running businesses like Albertsons and owning my own business. And I had 3 states under me at one time. You know, I had a business where I had a California, Oregon, and Minnesota under me for a business that I ran. And it was because I didn't commit any crimes. It was because I worked, because I paid my taxes, because I'm standing right next to you, the officer or the probation or the parole officer, and working with you. You know, like I avoided having to deal with police officers when it came to thefts at my stores. like shoplifting and stuff by teaching other people how to do the job because they needed to learn how to do it. So I didn't have to put my name on things. So I did have some things where I still looked over my shoulders, and I was tired of looking over my shoulders, and turned myself in and took care of that. And I had to go back to prison for 6 months. They weren't easy on me, and because their whole thing is, we don't know what you've been doing for 20 years. You could be, you know, a freaking kingpin of whatever, and we just don't know, and you just became that good at hiding from us and the crimes you commit. Fair enough. Totally fair enough, right? Very interesting experience, though, turning myself in Oregon and having to come to California on a international flight. And these two guys who travel around the whole country and pick people up like me, fugitives at large, right? But really delightful guys, man. I've really been lucky because I've been honest with people. Honesty is like, you know, once you're arrested, you can sit there and kick the back glass window of the freaking cop car and try to get out, or you can go, you know what? I did this. Okay. I deserve to have these handcuffs on. That's the attitude I've always chose to take. I didn't take that when I was a teenager and got beat by cops a couple times, so they literally beat that into me at a young age. And rightfully so. I can look back and see that was a necessity for me. You know, I'm not advocating it, but at the same time, it's what I needed. I believe in being raised by the belt. Like, that's how my parents raised me. I did my 6 months, and then I just started living life again, and then I relapsed. I went way hardcore over the edge, and I literally had 1 day left on that parole to finish, and I got myself arrested for possession of cocaine. And parole officer comes to visit me, and he goes, you know what? I'm dropping you off parole. You're going to jail. You're going to have to do the time for this part. But you only had, I was done. I was already done. The next day I was just picking up my paperwork. So I was already done that day. So he let me, he didn't violate me. Because I had done nothing but been good for them. You know, I faked on a lot of P-tests, but, you know, yeah. So anyway, then when I came back to being on a federal or another federal probation, I had to go through a few things, and I had to go back to jail a couple times, 9 months here, and I just kept getting high. At that point, I was doing all kinds of drugs and Pruno and everything else in jail. Because I had a source of income this time. Next time I wound up in this 9 months, right? And getting high in jail is stupid. Like, you're high on methamphetamine and locked in a freaking cage. Like, come on, duh. I came out of that. I tried to stay sober when I got out. That didn't help. Didn't happen. So I was living on the streets with my wife, my girlfriend at the time, and then I started selling drugs to get hotel rooms, living in hotel to hotel room, and got to a point where we had a friend whose ex-husband had a house that rented us a room, and let us pay him slowly until we had the deposit and everything paid, till we can actually start rolling into month to month, doing whatever kind of hustle I could do to do that. I was doing eBay stuff and, you know, selling drugs and evading my felony probation again, and got put in jail another time for that, another 3 months.
How old were you then?
Oh my God, in my 40s. In my 40s. This was 6 years ago. Yeah, it's like 6 years ago. Maybe 6 or 7 years ago now. And so anyhow, my mom died, and I wound up with a lot of money, And what that did was it facilitated me with a lot of drugs. And I came to a point where it didn't matter how much drugs I was doing. I wasn't getting high. I was smoking angel dust, PCP, to get high for 15 minutes, man. That high would last me about 15, 20 minutes. And that was it. Just nothing worked anymore. Nothing was going to work anymore. I was already done, right? And then one night I just bought this, for my mom's estate, I bought a 2015 Jaguar. That only had like, I don't know, 5,000 miles, 6,000 miles on it. And about 10 hours later, after smoking some PCP that night, like 4 o'clock in the morning, I passed out behind the wheel. I blacked out, and I hit 9 parked cars. I never got all the details from that, and I'll explain that in a minute. But when I was in the ER, chained to the freaking bed, I heard the one cop come in and go, he was driving so fast that when I hit the first car, it literally flipped this parked car up into the air onto the next one. So I figured I was probably doing 120, 130 miles an hour. Jaguar, I remember the thing went to 150, so I'm sure foot was just down on the pedal. And I had had some really bad back issues before that. My back was just getting to a point where I could walk again because I had all this stuff with my back, which is where my relapse started a long time ago. Sorry I didn't get into all that. 11 years ago, I had back surgery. When they put me on the drugs, that relapsed me. That's where I relapsed after 20 years. And turned myself in trying to get sober. That's how that happened. Sorry, there's so much in here, you guys. It's really hard for me to pack it all in here. I'm really trying for you. So anyhow, because of that injury, the cops had to site release me there, which they were pissed. I had over $30,000 worth of stuff in the back of my fucking car. Rare coins, like just all kinds of electronic equipment and stuff like that, my drones. And it all disappeared. I'm still dealing with the insurance on the cars. I haven't even gone through all the insurance stuff yet. I don't even know what I'm going to have to pay out. Luckily, I was fully insured. My insurance company's dealing with these people. So I've been sober now for August 15th this year will be 3 years. So I'm like 2 years and 10 months right now, or 9 months. But having had all the sobriety that I had makes a big, huge difference. Anyway, back to my story here. They had to site release me there. And as soon as I got out of the hospital, I ran. As soon as the nurse told me I was being released, my wife was there. I'm like, let's go. Grabbed my clothes, didn't wait for paperwork because I knew they were probably calling, the cops probably had them. Make sure you call us when he's released so we can grab his ass. I wasn't playing that. Homie, don't play that. I was out. Enough sense, and I'm glad I did do that because they did keep trying to trick me into coming into their squad play. They wouldn't release the car to anybody. We were trying to figure out if all my stuff was in the back, what was going on. So that turned out to be a big... Anyway, I went ahead and started calling rehab. First thing I did was call lawyers and got lawyers going on for the accident and these tickets. I had these warrants, these tickets that I needed to take care of, and so I started taking care of all that, and checked myself into a rehab because I was done. And I knew what I needed to do, and so I put $25,000 out of my own pocket, checked myself into rehab in Arrowhead, and I immediately surrendered. The desire to stop drinking and using immediately came to me. It's a power greater than myself. There's no way around that. Nothing could have humanly stopped me. I had tried to put the brakes on. My wife reached a point where her sanity was literally, we had to check her into the mental ward because she had drank herself into not just psychosis, but schizophrenia. And I knew we needed to stop, and I tried. and I couldn't. Somehow she pulled it together and started using again for a while. But this gave her the opportunity to get sober too. And so she is 2 years and 8 months sober. She didn't think I would stay sober, so that 30 days I was in rehab. But it really all just kicked in. By the third day, it kicked in. All that 20 years of sobriety that I had, they asked me to write this affirmations list about myself. And they wanted 50 affirmations. And I'm like, I can't do no 50 affirmations. She's like, it's normally 100. I mean, nice to you. I got to about the third one and the light switch kicked on. I remembered who I was, what I've accomplished in my life, which is a lot. Everything that I have accomplished that was any good, I was completely sober. All businesses that I ran, I never worked for any company when I was high. It wasn't fair to them, wasn't fair to me, it wasn't fair to the drugs and alcohol, ever. Like I couldn't, it just didn't mix for me. Wasn't one of those high functioning alcoholics like that, just no. So anyhow, 3 months into that, I had to turn myself in because of the courts. I had to go back to jail for 3 months. And the most amazing thing happened when I went to jail that last 3 months, man. Being in and out of jail my whole life, I think you'll understand this. I went in with a purpose. I asked the judge if I could take my big book, my Alcoholics Anonymous big book in with me. He told me, yeah, but I don't know what the cops are going to do. The cops wouldn't let me keep it. So about 3 days after being in, my wife started mailing all this stuff into me. And then I started 2 AA meetings while I was in there. And I kept my same routine that I did every single day here, that I still do to this day. Doing my sobriety and doing what I need to do, doing my prayer and meditation, being up at like 3 o'clock in the morning before everybody else got up or was just going to sleep in jail. It's like people are coming and going constantly when you're in a 250-man dorm, you know? But I left there in 3 months, and normally when you're sitting at that door and you're waiting to go, it's like it's like you got ants all over you. You're so anxious to go, you know? I didn't have any of that. I was completely calm about the whole situation. I knew what I was leaving to. I watched people have relationship situations, like, what's that dude doing there? And all this jealousy stuff. And I didn't have to worry about any of that. My wife was behind me 100%. And I understood at that point what true unconditional love was, and that we had come out of everything that I just explained to you and had that. Our relationship keeps building stronger and stronger. And it's like a whole new thing because of sobriety. Staying sober isn't just the main key. It's not just abstinence. It's finding a spiritual path, whatever spiritual is for you, path of positivity, shutting off the negativity and realizing that positive and negative are all the same exact plane. We don't have to look at things in black and white. It just is. Life just is. It's like the air that's around us, you know? I mean, there's three truths there's three things that you can't get away from always, and that's the sun and the moon and the truth. There are three constants. It's always there. The truth will always come out, right? And it's always on one level playing field. Find your spirituality. Find your higher power. Find that inner peace within that. And you only have to 16. Most people, if you sleep 8 hours a day, and a lot of you, if you're kicking drugs, you're already sleeping 10 or 13 hours already. You know, so that's 11 hours you got to be up and deal with. But on a normal basis, when you get to the normal basis, you got 16 hours a day to really try to just make it through. And it's like I said, it's not just the abstinence, it's finding your purpose. And that purpose for everybody really should be just to give to the next person. Buddha said it. Christ said it. It's been shown to us over and over and over, man. And it really works. It's that simple. Forgive, forget, let it go. It will serve you no purpose to hold on to resentments. It'll serve you no purpose to hold on to anger. And it serves us no purpose to hate. Love is the ultimate connection for everything, you guys. for everything. So from my heart into yours, namaste. Thank you.